What is up, everyone? It's Monday down here, so bear with us. We're trying to get out of the kinks of Mondays here, and I think we're all pretty exhausted. But
we are all dying.
Good weekend though. Austin did his first drift event in his very own car, the JZX90. It held up amazing, and you drove amazing, and it makes me so much more excited for the rest of the season.
Thank you. I'm excited to drive so much more this year.
Yeah, it's such a good car, dude. Like, do you want to change anything?
No, I drove it to work this morning. Let's take it to get groceries this evening.
Perfect. JZX, it just works. So between going to Japan, having to go to Florida, and getting Austin's car ready for the event, we haven't had much time to do too much else. We've been so busy, and I've been dying to get back to work on the Porsche. Last time we touched this thing, you guys saw we made a whole, like, we'll say subframe or engine cradle for it, right? It attached from the back and came forward, and currently Spoon is welding that together right now because we only had it tacked up. Today, what we have to do is finally attach our drivetrain to the subframe and get it officially bolted in the Porsche, right? So our Maserati V8, boom, attached to our 996 transmission, all bolted into our Porsche 915, I guess we'll call it. G-body, whatever. This is when it all becomes real and makes the swap official. And I don't care how long it takes us, we're getting it done in this video because I need it to be real. So let's get to work. Since we're officially mounting the drivetrain now, we have to make sure this thing is fixed in a very good position, right? We got to make sure that this thing is squared up so when we measure it in the chassis, it all kind of balances together. So we can't just have it balancing on 2x4s like we did before, right? So we're gonna get this thing on the welding table and try and get this thing in place in a hopefully steady manner. As long as this could go high enough to get on the table. Jordy, nothing to see here, buddy. Go down real slow. Keep going, you're doing great.
Thank you.
Now hold it right there.
Don't want to drop my sandwich.
Here, Austin, can you hold it like right here?
You just said no 2x4s.
Oh, I mean,
The Django.
it's not dumb if it works, right? So theoretically, this plate should be straight, and it looks straight. I mean, half the battle is it looking straight, right? So. Sick. The heads aren't symmetrical, like they're offset, so it tricks your brain because they look like they're perfectly symmetrical. So we're just gonna weld the bars to the table so we don't have to think about it at all. God forbid one of us knocks into the engine. We don't want to play this game with it potentially falling off the table. Spoon just finished welding it up. Looks beautiful. Hid my atrocious gaps. Nice work, Spoon. All right, now we can start mocking this thing back up in the car and figuring out where we want to position it, because this is where we actually have to commit to position, which is a little stressful because this is step one to the whole build. It's going to determine everything. All right, stop right there for me. Go up a little bit. All right, go down slow. Oh, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. All right, I think that's where it's supposed to be. So let's mount the cradle to the chassis and start making some measurements. So now you guys see that we have our like subframe in the chassis, and what we have to do now is connect the drivetrain to this whole pedestal that we made. So before we can make engine mounts, we got to reinforce a little bit more, right? Because we don't want to put the engine mounts on and all of a sudden the frame just gets bowed outward from the weight. So we're gonna put a tube right in the middle of the time together, at least to start, right? So we have this nice spot in front of the transmission that is pretty flat and open. So we're gonna try and connect these with a 1-inch tube, and that will be our first point to tie together. And we're gonna need more than that, but step one. We need to make this. Simple enough, right? Painter now?
Hey.
What are you doing?
Making crappy stuff look good. What are you doing?
You gotta bend stuff and notch stuff and...
Okay. Okay.
Good energy, I like this. All right, so my center on center for the tubes that this is connecting is 20 inches. And I want from center line to center line drop down 1.5 inches. So I gotta put some bends in it to account for that drop so it can go underneath the...
Okay.
It's like I'm in elementary school again, making shapes. So we're gonna make a quick template on the table of exactly what we have to make.
So it's your center to center. And then how much?
We want a center to center 1 inch drop, 1.5 inch drop.
1.5 inch drop.
Yep, so center of the 1 5/8 to the center of the 1 inch. All right, so we're aiming for 60 degrees. Johnny already has this pre-bent piece from a previous project that we like the way it fits, so we're gonna make that bend real quick. Hey, nice and flat, baby.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's actually pretty good.
Says it's so surprised. Thank you, Johnny.
You're welcome.
We got our piece. Looks beautiful. Now we gotta make a small knot so it fits on the pipe. Yeah, it's gonna be perfect. Let's see if I got lucky first try. This side looks good. Let's see what this side looks like. While we've been doing this, Spoon's been over here cutting the last of the rust out of the coupe. So the rockers on this thing were pretty bad.
I wouldn't say the last of the rust, but some of the rust.
The last of the major rust, or the rust that we're gonna at least deal with, you know. Worse than you thought, better than you thought.
No, it's worse.
Oh. You said it in like a really uplifting way, I don't know. The next part of this is we actually have to mount the engine to the cradle, which is huge. This is the big part. This is the scary part because where we make these positions everything, and there's no turning back. If we're 80% way through the project and something's horribly in the way or doesn't fit right, you could yell at me right now. We won't know till we get there. You gotta plan ahead as much as possible. You gotta think of every single system as you're doing this and where it's gonna go, how it's gonna fit, and what might not work. So you gotta be very attentive, and you know, it's easy to miss stuff. So, factory engine mounts, these big hunky chunks of aluminum, right? Not gonna fit, right? They're just not, that's just not it. It's like actually a weird mount. So what we did is, we got Johnny's plasma table and cut out these, well, new platforms for mounts, right? Thick old steel, we got it bolted to the engine, and now we have something to build off of. And we're gonna keep it simple, right? We're gonna just get a tube, weld to this, weld to here, and reinforce it. It's that easy. We don't have to put a mount in it because our bushings or our mount are in the chassis, right? So where this cradle bolts to the chassis and the front here, those are our mounts, those are our bushings. So all the vibration from the drivetrain to the chassis will be dealt with right there. Let's bolt up the other side, figure out the engine position for good. Should clear the dry sump system. We're gonna find out. The engine's level, but the chassis is not, so let's get that figured out. So we actually had to tilt the engine up a little bit because our drivetrain angle was wrong, but I dropped a plumb bob, which is marking the center of our chassis, right? Because we want the center of our drivetrain to be centered with our chassis. And if you look, it's dead on with the crank pulley, which is hilarious because it doesn't look centered. You would think visibly that it's a super symmetrical engine, but the offset that has slightly different offsets that trick your brain crazy. So it's like, do you play that game? Do I put it where it looks centered? Or do I put it where it measures centered? That's what's gonna drive you nuts. We're gonna hopefully split the difference. Don't breathe now. It's exactly where it should be. It's gonna sit exactly like that as long as nothing moves. It's annoying because the alternator isn't dead center, so it makes it look like the engine's not dead center. The lock is center line, so it gives you this perfect center point of like, do you see how it's off from the intake?
A little bit, a hair.
And to be fair, the drivetrain is like 1/8 of an inch to the left. It's the best. If I true center line it, it makes it very difficult for fitment over here. So I'm kind of just splitting hairs. It is what it is. Let's start making some tubes.
What's up, guys? Young Takami. Oh yeah. Fucking welded right to the edge of his brand new table.
Don't touch anything.
Oh.
Don't even breathe on it.
Is it level? Is this where it's gotta go? You about to make engine mounts?
Yeah.
Sick.
Move your big head.
Come on, I'm looking at stuff. You want me to move this plumb bob?
Don't touch a damn thing. Okay, so we can't really fit it dead center of this mount because the bolts, right? Factory, they bolted it in the front. So I'm gonna say that Maserati has it figured out. It's probably balanced better with it more forward. Part of me wants to put it in the back because then it'll take some load off the trans, but then we have a whole trans mount going in, so it doesn't matter. We got the right length. Now I just gotta get the angle in them. Nice. Not bad, right? This looks, I like the way this looks. Yeah, this looks good right there. Official. Engine mounts are in. This one is, it's not perfectly symmetrical. It sits a little bit higher, but I had to put it higher just to clear the dry sump right here. But we have just enough room that it should clear. See it? Oh, that's good. Now we have to work on the trans mount, and well, I don't really want to do that with the car above us, and we really can't because we don't have the room for it. So what I did was I welded everything to the table. So I welded our subframe to the table, so that's all fixed. The drivetrain is fixed, so we should be able to make this thing out of the car as long as nothing moves, and then hopefully it'll fit right back in it, theoretically.
That's the hope.
That's the hope. So I just realized I have to account for this height real quick and this width, so I have to make a template for that. It's all welded to the table, so let me just make a template right here real quick, and then we'll go up with it and hopefully work out of the car. Don't. Are we clearing everything?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Don't move it.
What is a plumb bob?
What is a plumb bob? Plumb bob, it basically just gives you the center point of where the string's mounted, right?
Got you.
So now we can get a better look at it, because you guys have been seeing me just make tacks on this car in the dark for a while. So we'll get it. We have our mount that comes straight off, right to the plate. We'll reinforce these later on. Some really crappy tacks, always spoon. This is fixed to the table, so is the drivetrain. So now we can make our trans mount not being in the car, which is good. I don't even want to move the table because I don't want anything to move. We'll make it right here. How are we gonna make a trans mount? There is no room in here. So what we're gonna do is make one that goes over the transmission. So if you guys saw in the last video, we made this plate that bolted on the transmission right here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run a bar, bolt it to that plate, and then mount it to here. And that will hold the transmission up by hanging instead of utilizing this factory mount up here that we have literally no room for. We should be running this 1-inch tube right here, basically touching the transmission. We should have just enough room for it. Plating this together. And then this will loop around the transmission all the way to our little subframe, but we're not gonna fix mount this one. We actually made these bushings right here. So this is a piece of tube steel we machined down to fit an S14 control arm bushing. In these ears that we made on the plasma table, we should be able to do something like this. It's kind of cool, right? I'm using a piece of filler wire right here to try and get a rough idea of what kind of shape I want. So, only thing that's really in the way is the weight for the shifter linkage. Now I can cut it off and have plenty of room, but I don't know if the shifting feel is gonna feel really awkward if I'm missing a weight on it. So I'd prefer to leave it if I can. Cleared everything else, so we just might have to make the trans mount a little less cool looking. Something like this. This is the shape. It's kind of ugly. It's like this big tombstone. It'd be like, it'd look a lot cooler if we kept it really tight to the trans, but it gives us a lot more room for the shifter linkage and everything else if we just kind of keep it wide like this. So now the real question is, how do we get a 1-inch piece of steel to look like this?
That is ridiculous, Spoon.
Backwards, in and out.
That's crazy.
Back to Johnny's. Johnny! This is the shape we need. This is the inside of it, right?
Yeah, so the tube's gonna be out here.
Yeah, exactly, because this is like as tight as we can make it. Seems easy enough.
I hope you got extra tubing, Jimmy.
I do, but here's the thing, right? So we have the ears that we got to weld on, right?
Yeah.
And those aren't on yet, so we can kind of rotate them to make up for any discrepancies in the tube, right?
Yep, for sure.
We love that.
First bend.
What's nice is Johnny has his previously bent pieces where he marked where the bend started and where it ended, so we know exactly how much material is going to be lost to the bend. So it makes our life a lot easier when we're trying to figure out exactly where we need to position the pipe to bend it. So bending conduit, huh, Johnny?
Yep. And here, so obviously this is a 60, half of that is 30, so we can kind of estimate, you know, probably about 30 degrees right there.
Since we have the markings on here about where he started and where it ends on the die, we're able to use this to make a good estimate about where to start the bend on our piece. Heck yeah, it's mint.
Not too bad.
Oh, not too bad. Looks great.
So what's harder, a main hoop for a car or this mini main hoop for the transmission?
Probably this stuff because the bends are just so close to one another.
But would you follow this very similar process?
I basically just measure like where I want my bends and how wide I want them, you know, in the car to get as wide as possible. And I also have a tool for specific size tubing and radius tubing where you can basically
we're getting
set
too intricate
the
here.
angle and you can hold it up there and it'll tell you, you know.
Yeah, so the same thing.
Yeah, same.
Of course, yeah. Getting somewhere, Johnny. We're getting somewhere. That's actually perfect. Nice job on that one.
Yeah. But this is the last one can really screw us up.
This is the last bend, and this bend is what brings symmetry to the whole piece, so no stress, but it's really easy to mess it up. So, zero the piece out so it's all nice and on the same plane. It actually is pretty mint, Johnny.
It's not bad. I think it should have been up.
The bend should have been up a little bit, but
up a little bit more. Unless your template could be different too.
it probably is,
You know.
made of TIG wire.
Yeah.
You know? Well, luckily, you really can't see both sides of the transmission at the same time, so
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. That's awesome.
Am I hired?
From concept to reality. Now, hopefully I don't mess it up trying to notch the next part of it.
They make more every day, Jimmy. Don't worry about it.
Okay. You see what we're doing right now? That's actually perfect. That actually doesn't look as dorky as I thought it was gonna look. Actually, look at from this angle. Like, that looks sick. I thought like having it stick out super far was gonna make it look kind of dorky, but it actually looks pretty like beefed up. Enough room for the shifter linkage. This is sick. So I'm using this to basically notch the tube because we're kind of splitting hairs with this one. So check it out. So I kind of marked my lowest points on each side. I'm just using that as an eyeball template. If we were making it, that'd be plenty good enough. Gotta get it a little bit tighter. So we're using these little round sanding disc here to kind of put an arch to it. It ain't dumb if it works. Hands on deck. Just looking Ricky in the eyes when I make tacks. We put little baby tacks and everything, so now we can make sure everything is where we want it before we actually load it down, because right now they're really easy to break off, right? That's the point of them. So clears the linkage. It is a hair above the trans, which is perfect. Take a walk back, let me know if the ears look pretty even. Yeah, not bad, right? So we got the bar attached to the subframe, going over the transmission, now we gotta attach it to the transmission. So we previously made this plate on the plasma table that bolts onto the transmission. So this is going to give us a foundation to weld to attach to our tube. So now we have to do some cardboard aided design and make a couple templates that go from here to the tube itself and to reinforce it, and that will allow us to actually hang the transmission by this bar, which is pretty sick.
The vision is coming to life.
The vision is coming, yeah, it's a simple way to put it. The vision is coming to life and it looks sick. So in the meantime, we just got a crazy big pallet of boxes that showed up, and Spoon got right to work. And we got a huge care package from our buddies down at Viper Chair. As you guys know, we have their rolling chairs. Well, there's
underneath the
two under the Pro car to move it around. We have the little, that one over there, which is like my favorite chair ever. Well, they just came out with a cart.
On the chassis dolly.
This is the new chassis dolly, yeah. I saw Grant put his Pro car in his.
Did he?
Yeah, and I got really jealous. That's why I made the comment about the chairs. So they sent us their new cart that Spoon's building up, which is really freaking cool. And it looks like there's a couple more boxes. I don't know what's in that, but stay tuned to find out, because it could be anything. Greasy finger. Put a 1 inch to that. Just a little cuts here. This is when you always end up cutting off too much. Yeah, just a hair more. This is what we got right here. Little CAD cardboard aided design right here. So slip on, sit there, and well, just like that. How's it look? Pretty official, right?
Yeah.
It's easy out of paper. Let's see if we can make it to fruition with some metal. This is our little template here, and everything's gonna be perfect. Boom, that's what we got. Click on there, slide down. We're close.
That's not too bad.
It's not the most, it's not perfect, but it's close. It would definitely be a lot easier if we did it in 3 different pieces, but it's kind of cool to just do it in one. Doesn't hit, which is what I was worried about, like the top of the bracket, because it gets really close to the chassis. But unfortunately, this basically touches. Like, if I went back 5 millimeters, it would have been a home run. But like, had to split the difference, because the farther I put it back, the higher the tube got. And I knew we were really close on that aspect, so I played it a little bit too conservatively. So that sucks. But we can't go any. If we just tilted it slightly more. I was so scared of the height. This isn't structural, the top part is structural.
Yeah,
so
the height would have screwed us more.
Yeah, the height would, exactly. The height would have screwed us more because we couldn't have just hammered it in. All right, well, we have to do slight hammering on the driver's side rear 4, which is upsetting because we almost did this perfectly. Where it sits, it's where it lays. All the mounting points are on, from the chassis to the engine, it's all there. The rest will just be welding it and reinforcing it. And if we can, it would be really fun to make a skid plate for this thing, since this does hang lower than a drivetrain. We could easily build a skid plate off of it. So we had one clearance issue, and it was the rear floor back there. I'm bummed about that. And the only other thing we might have a major issue on, which I completely forgot to mention, is the motor mounts, right? So they're fixed right now, and we have plenty of room right here to get this out of the way, right? But on the other side, we have the dry sump system, and so we might not have enough room to wiggle the engine out of our platform here. So we might have to cut off one of these legs and put like a pin in it or something like that so we can remove it. So we're gonna find out very shortly once we pull the engine off, but I'm feeling optimistic. There's a lot of room on this side to move the engine over to clear the dry sump, so cross your fingers for me. Some things are tight, it's not too bad. The valve covers are tight on the engine mounts on the chassis, so I'm gonna have to notch that. So I'm making all my marks now. We'll bang in the rear floor there. Honestly, once there's some weight on this bushing, the trans should probably sag just a little bit, and it might give us enough room. Plenty of room for the headers, right? So the headers will come out, come up, and we can go around the cage. Plenty of room for the axles. Just enough room for the shifter cables. I mean, it looks like it fits pretty good. What do you think?
We really didn't have to modify it much besides just for the trans.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to make it not super intrusive. All right, let's pull this out, start welding it. So I'm dying to see this thing hang in the car under its own weight, but of course we gotta get this thing welded because the couple tacks that are on here probably won't survive. So once this thing is welded up, we'll get it back in the car and it'll probably stay there for a little bit, right? Because there's a couple things that we still need to make sure we have room for in the car. Like a dry sump tank, we still gotta figure out one that fits in there, where we could fit it, and of course we want the engine in for that. Maybe we'll get after the headers initially. It'd be kind of nice to do all the mocking and making while the engine's all dirty and wouldn't mind getting scratched.
Before we make everything look pretty.
Before we make everything look pretty. It's always nice to finish a swap before you take it all back apart, make everything look pretty again, so then you don't have to go back and drill holes, hammer things, modify stuff, but obviously it doesn't tell the best narrative. Engine's gotta go in. As you can tell, I already started pulling the wiring out of the chassis. We gotta get that all out. I just pulled the pedal box out like a minute ago. And I have to really start planning where I can run the harness, where I could run the hydraulic brake line, where I could run the vacuum line that goes to the brake booster, where I could run the fuel lines, where I could run the coolant lines. So we're trying to get after all that stuff now before we try and make it look pretty. And then on top of that, we got to mount a radiator somewhere in here and all the lines that go with that, and the fuel cell. So we got a lot of work, but it's exciting. There's no script for this. We get to make our own. The new car from Viper Chair is freaking sick. I'm really hyped on this. We got all the little accessories. We got Spoon's dog bowl right here.
That's the same thing we said.
Is that what you said? Yeah. That's great because now it gives a table to put stuff on that's not the welding table, so it works out really well. But Spoon has been going crazy in the background, actually making new rocker panels for this car. We're not trying to go too crazy, but it'd be a shame to just let it be rusty underneath the side skirts. It's the last bit of it.
Bro,
so.
I said it yesterday. You could literally give this man enough metal, and I feel like he could build the car from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. Give him a couple of hammers, some metal, and I don't know, maybe some weed, and you'll get something pretty nice. He's finishing up on this side right here. And it looks incredible, of course. So that'll be the last major rust of this chassis. I got the rear stuff in, and once the coilover's in, it's officially roller, which is huge. So we're just trying to make some progress. I still got to figure out if I want to replace the trunk floor, just cut it out and put a plate in there. I'll make up my mind later. But for now, you guys know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. We'll see you guys very shortly.